Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forgotten OneCast. I am your host, CJP, and today's episode, we're going to be talking about John Carpenter. Now, for those who may not be familiar, or if you've been living under a rock, or you're, a millennial or zennial or whatever they're calling him these days, he was a horror, action, just all-around great director back in the 80s and 90s and created some of basically my childhood for a lot of it. And but what most people don't really remember is the fact that he wrote most of the music for his own films, which is, I don't think anyone else has ever done that, which I just find absolutely fascinating. And of course, he also really kicked off the synthwave genre of music without really, intending to, because he said it himself in an interview, I think it was in 2016. He said, I had no particular interest in synthesizers other than they provided a means to sound big with just a keyboard. So it really wasn't his intention, but it's still a great thing to witness. So joining me today, I have from the Place to Be Reviews on YouTube. You can follow him there on Rumble, on Twitter. Etep Wokuian, he's the horror master. He's really steeped in that genre of films. So I wanted to bring him on and let's talk some John Carpenter. Etep, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. I'm rested, as I told you off air. I just woke up from a nap, so I've got my coffee and I'm ready to talk some John Carpenter because as I was listening to his music all day, like off and on all day when I was in between editing and in the car and just walking around the house in general. I was listening to basically everything, a sampling of everything he's done just to kind of brush up on it because there's some of the stuff I haven't heard in forever. And you were talking about the synthwave stuff, and it's like that touches a special place in my heart because of the way it was used in the Halloween movies and in some of his other work. How just I really love that style, and yeah, his music is phenomenal. There was some stuff today that I heard that I'd never heard before. I've never seen Prince of Darkness, and now I'm gonna watch that. I never have. I've never seen that one. And it's like I was listening to some of the music from it. I'm like, wow. And the evolution of his stuff you can see is phenomenal, but we'll talk about that as we go. Thank you for having me, man. It's great to be here.
No, I always get fascinated by people who do things outside of the box. And being a movie director primarily and story writer, and then your own composer. The only thing I could think of that would be close would be Tommy Wiseau, but thank God he didn't write his own music. I can't imagine how bizarre and weird that would be.
with the direction he went with his love scenes, I can only imagine how the music would have been scored.
that cat is just weird.
Yes.
Before we really get into it, we do have a few people in the chat. I wanted to bring them up here. We got Dermy Wormy of Ballbusters. This isn't a Donald Trump arrest. No. We don't talk politics on this channel. We talk music. That's what we do. And we got Keely Chow in the chat. Keely's everywhere. I swear, I think he may be like 50 different people, or she. I'm not sure. Because
it's a he. It's a he. I've streamed with Keely back in the day on Groovinator's channel, Raiders of the Lost Flicks, and Keely is that's why I call him. He's like the Phantom Menace Ultron. He is just everywhere. He's just got just the Ultron bots. Every live stream, there's Keely.
So I was gonna share this real quick as soon as my computer decides it wants to cooperate with me. This was an album that Carpenter released in 2017, and it's actually, I don't know if you've listened to it. It's on YouTube, or at least parts of it are. He basically went in and actually re-recorded these different themes. And so, there's actually, more than just the synthesizers that he'd used back in the day, just to re-record these different songs. And I'm glad he did Pork Chop Express and not Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, I love that movie to death. The theme's a little weird. The music video is atrocious. Like we're talking Billy Squier Rock You Tonight levels of bad. And that's the video that killed his career, literally. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's one of the funnier things I've ever seen from that time.
No.
Yeah, chance YouTube Rock Me Tonight, and you can see why he lost fans pretty quickly.
I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up so I have it on a tab for after the show.
But really for me, my introduction obviously was Halloween, and then Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China were really the three that I watched the most often when it came to Carpenter's films. And it was the theme from the Escape from New York that's the one that really caught me.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's just kind of slow and methodic, and it builds to a little bit of a B section, but it's really just that doom, 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 doom. That's really all he's doing, and just adding the layers of synths on top of it, and it's really masterful work.
Isn't that where they took the Stranger Things theme from? Was the Escape? It was one of his songs that I want to say it was Carpenter that inspired them when they did the theme song, the intro for Stranger Things.
I'm not sure which one it is, but that wouldn't surprise me.
It is. It's a Carpenter. It's a Carpenter centric beat. I remember here. I can't remember because somebody was like, it was a video I was listening to, and they were talking about the music, and it was like, yeah, it was like this is basically lifted from. I think it was Escape from New York. It's very reminiscent of a Carpenter beat. And yeah, that was one of the first themes I listened to earlier, and I'm like, it's kind of one of those things you're just nodding your head. You're like, it's also catchy.
Oh yeah, it is definitely an earworm. I mean, it's got a great hook to it, and it really set the tone for that movie. Because that movie's kind of slow and methodical. It's not a quick action movie like you would think of in the 80s. It was a lot more methodical than anything else that was really out at the time. And of course, it's Kurt Russell. I mean, you can never go wrong with Kurt Russell.
No. Kurt Russell in the 1980s was like, I mean, dude, he was everywhere. But yeah, Snake, you can never go wrong with the Snake Plissken. You know what I mean?
No. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to track down this album, it's called Anthology, movie themes from 74 to 98. It's a great compilation, and there's actually music videos of him playing along with these. So it's not just, a recreation. Yeah. It's actually him almost reinterpreting these themes.
Okay.
With more of a rock band interpretation instead of like a full orchestral, which that's what most people would have done, is they would have done big orchestral score versions of it, which it really doesn't work with synthwave to me.
No,
it just doesn't sound right.
No, synthwave, it needs to be it's its own thing. You don't want to really put anything else to it, because I'm not a composer, but just from listening to music, the different layers that go into the synthwave type stuff, it's like you don't want to. There's already a lot going on, so adding an orchestra to that would just make it would be too busy in your ears to me. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's kind of looking back.
I'm not a musician, but
yeah. I mean, and then this is really, actually really a good sampling of his movies, because these are really the ones that resonated with most people. And I forgot he did the score for Christine.
Same. I was listening to that, and I was going through the playlist. I'm like, wait, Christine? Like, that's a Stephen King movie. I'm like, yeah, he did the music for that. Like, that's
he didn't direct that one, I don't think.
I don't think he did. I am almost 100% certain he didn't direct Christine. Here, I'll pull that up.
And of course, Starman. I that's another movie I always liked as a kid. It was kind of a weird one. Because it had the actors who played Marion in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
Jeff Bridges was the alien, and she's kind of trying to teach him about Earth and life, and while he's still trying to evade the police and get back to his ship. And
Carpenter did direct Christine.
He did.
I didn't think he directed that.
He did either.
I'm not, but
he kind of does his own thing.
Yeah, I'm not a Christine aficionado though. Like, I mean, I've seen the movie, a couple times, but it's not one that I'm really steeped in the lore or the mythos of. You know what I mean? To me, it's a cool movie. you know, and his Carpenter's music in it definitely, especially the one theme I really liked as I listened to a lot of that one today was Moochie's death scene. Just that's the one that the car is like squashing itself down the alley as oh God, I was like, that scene is just so intense. I'm like, I'm listening to the music and I'm replaying it in my head. I'm like, but that's what a good score does for you. Like, you don't only focus on the music, but it will just it evokes that imagery that's you correlate from the movie to it, you know, and that's a good thing because it's like, man, I should probably go rewatch this movie.
Those are the best soundtracks, is the ones that it brings you straight into the movie in your head. You know, that you can immediately pick, okay, I hear this theme, this is what happened in the movie, or this is the dialogue that was being said. That's those are the best soundtracks. And unfortunately, I kind of think that's really been lost in the last 10, 15 years, because I can't really think of a standout soundtrack other than like Stranger Things, obviously, but that's mainly because it used a lot of 80s music.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that Carpenter, Faltermeyer style.
Very. The only other, and this is going to sound really bad, is because I hate to give him credit for anything, but James Gunn with the Guardians soundtracks. I've said this before, James Gunn, take, you know, him out of the equation, but the music he uses in the movies is great. It always works. And even if it doesn't, it's never really a bad song.
Right.
You know, it was like the Chain with Fleetwood Mac. It's like, did that really go with that scene in Guardians 2? Well, no, but James Gunn really wanted to use the Chain, so it's going in this scene.
And he ponied up a large amount of money to get the licensing for it.
That's another thing, and that's with Carpenter doing, you know, his own scoring and stuff like that. Like with Halloween, they showed that movie. They did the test screening. I think it was in like St. Louis, Missouri, and there was no reaction to the movie. Carpenter's like, hang on a second, goes and scores it, and all of a sudden it's like, you've got a classic on your hands. Oh, yeah. Just because of that score, the atmospheric score he put into that. And I talked about the evolution of his sound over the years, and that 70s, that distinctive sound you heard in like Halloween and Assault on Precinct 13, and even into The Fog a little bit, which is the early 80s. And then it starts to go into you get the saxophones a little bit in there, and I think it was it Escape from New York? Had the 80s stuff, you know, a lot of but a saxophone was very, very prevalent. Me and Tony were talking about this the other day. In all like your 80s music, what was it was saxophones.
Yes.
You know.
Oh yes.
You had a saxophone.
Saxophone music, you know, really in the 80s, just and unfortunately, again, it's another one of those kind of dying sounds.
It's a lost art. It is. It's a lost art.
Really hear a lot of saxophone players anymore.
No.
You know, I think Kenny G might be the last one, and I hesitate to call him a saxophonist because he was really more of a new age kind of, you know,
right?
Yeah, you know, Enya, old man, you know, in the closet, you know. This one sounds like you're dying, Billy.
The return to innocence. It's sad that I even know that.
But hey, no, Scrambles the Death Dealer. What's up, buddy?
What up, Scrambles? Hail, brother. No, that but yeah, I loved it's like the evolution of Carpenter's music as you moved into like his from movie to movie. But yeah, Halloween is always going to stick out for me. I mean, I've seen that movie a million times, and
it did help that he still scored 2 and 3.
Yes,
so it kept that continuity of sound. Because
I was going to say,
RoboCop is one of those the 3 movies. Is the first one and the third one had the same composer. It's another reason why I didn't really care for the second one. Is Goofy's the third one was.
Yeah.
Still sounded better because it had that continuity to the first film.
Yep.
With Basil Poldoris as the composer.
Yeah, because the third one he's flying around and everything.
Yes, well, because they tried to tone it down a bit because they did have a children's cartoon of it for some inexplicable reason. That was a big thing in the 80s, having children's cartoons based on R-rated properties.
Yeah. Yep, they like to do that, I was like, let's push the envelope a little bit.
I remember the Rambo cartoon,
Like, is this really? They had a did Chuck Norris have a cartoon too or something? Didn't he have one at one
I think
time?
he did. Yeah, I think he did.
He's in all like Delta Force and shit like that, all those canon films. It's like, yeah, I would, why didn't we ever get an Assault on Precinct 13 cartoon? What the hell?
Yeah.
Why didn't they do an animated series of that?
I am
I
going to
never.
hurt you a little bit. I never actually saw The Thing. I've heard
Oh,
nothing
really?
praise for it, but I've never actually watched it.
See, and I'm the same way. There's movies like that people are like I said I've never seen what was it, Prince of Darkness. I was like, that's one that the box art always like captivated me, but I never saw the movie. I've never watched it. So hearing you've never seen The Thing, I mean, it's it's kind of like wow, but at the same time you're like, well, I think about all the movies that I haven't seen that people are like, I can't believe you've never watched that, and I'm like, yeah, so I'm not going to hold it against you. But it's a great movie. I'd never watched the new one. Was it 2011? I never watched the new one. I'm just like, I don't know if I really need this, like
Yeah.
the original one's a fucking masterpiece. So the cast is tremendous. I'm like, I don't know if I need this. And yeah, speaking of which, the score for that one is fantastic too.
Mm. Now, he did do a lot of work with Alan Howarth, especially with They Live, with Prince of Darkness, Escape from New York, even Halloween. He worked a lot on the second and third one. And really what he was doing is he was handling more of the producing, like the engineering side of
Yeah.
it. Because that wasn't Carpenter's forte.
Mm-hmm.
He was more the Alan Parsons part of it, the actual the engineer, handling all that side of it, while Carpenter was actually writing the music. So it was good that they had that collaboration, that he was able to have someone to handle the technical side of things.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's because if he's got to worried about be worried about that, it takes away from what he's actually doing, which is the composing.
Yeah.
Because then you've got double duty, and it's like you don't want to spread yourself too thin, especially if you're trying to compose music. It would seem to me that's like writing. It's like writing a book. You don't want to have to manage too many things if especially if you're in the zone.
Yeah. And I also always love the soundtrack for They Live, which of course is because it's such a great movie.
Oh, that I was talking about this earlier. It's like that's one I need to buy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of these on the list. I'm like Assault on Precinct 13. I've never seen the remake. But I've saw the original. It was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure I watched it with my mom. And it's like, man, I haven't seen that movie in probably 20, 25 years. Like I was probably a teenager when I watched that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I was a teenager 25 years ago. I forget. Speaking of that, John Carpenter's Vampires. That there is, and you get in when you get into his work on that, and just how the style shifted, because that's 98, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of my favorite Carpenter movies is John Carpenter's Vampires, which is like up there with my favorite vampire movies, like Lost Boys and Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat,
Yeah.
which has got Bruce Campbell in it. But yeah, man, he did some great like modern type work, and you talk about his modern style, Ghosts of Mars, which is, I think that's an underrated movie. I really do. Natasha Henstridge, Ice Cube, good cast again. And his music really moved into the next century there.
Yeah.
But man, it's like the guy never lost his touch. Like
No.
he even did the new Halloween movies, I think it was, which I mean, I hated all three of them, but I'm like, it's like there was things that I liked, and that was number one, he did the music, and number two, the aesthetics when they did the flashback sequences took me right back to Halloween 1 and 2. I mean, it's like if they would have done a movie of that with the 78 look,
Mm-hmm.
would have been so much better, especially with him doing the music. But then, they brought just the way it worked was bad, but no, the music from was good. They really, really did a wonderful job, capturing, John recaptured what he did, back in 1978.
40 plus years ago.
Yeah, Jesus, 40. I don't know. It's like, trust me, that's my age. I don't know.
Tulsa, yeah, so many great and terrible memories. What was the 80s,
Yeah.
It was definitely the 80s, And speaking of They Live and Roddy Piper, I did want to take a quick break and, definitely condolences to the Rotunda family hearing about Bray Wyatt passing. That was just out of nowhere today.
No, and we just lost Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Terry Funk, it's like you're like, you know what, this guy like lived a hard life. And yeah, I can believe that. Now, Bray Wyatt, 36 years old. God rest his soul. I don't know what to say to that. I feel bad because Mike Rotunda lost a son, and now, he's just left with Bo Dallas, which is, but no, Wyndham was his shoot name, Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt, ring psychology that came from somebody in the 70s or the 80s, in the Southern Territory, the way he could work, and he planned out matches and would, he was playing 4D chess when he would plan out a match. So, but you never heard anything bad about the guy either. That's one of the things out of the wrestling business that's a rarity, to find like somebody who it's like they're not a complete just douchebag, and he was one of those guys. So yeah, he'll be missed, and God, prayers to his family and everything, because it's sad, 36 years old. He's a kid, guy's a fucking kid. It's sad, man. But
yeah. Well, and, he was married and didn't have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, someone's lost their father, someone's lost their husband, at an extremely young age.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is, one of the problems. And I tell you, like I said, as somebody who spent 10 years in the business, it's, I tell people, I have somebody who's 17, 18-year-old brother wants to get into it right now. And she's a friend, she's a friend of mine. She teaches at school with me, and she was like, he's looking for a training school. I said, put him in contact with me. I'll help him find a training school around where he's at. There's not going to get ripped off. And I said, I'm going to give him a few pieces of advice before he ever goes to training. And I'm not going to come off like a grizzled vet, but I'm going to tell him, if you do this, if you go all in, you put all your chips on the table with this sport, you might as well kiss about 15 to 20 off the back end of your life. Just kiss them goodbye right now. And get ready to be, 40 to 50 years old, not be able to walk right. You want kids, you're going to be able to play with your kids if you're around for them, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to try to scare him. She goes, no, he needs to hear this stuff. I'm like, That's why I'm glad I had limited in-ring work over the 10 years. I worked in the ring full time for like a year and a half out of that, spot matches. And then I just ring announced. It's like, I started working full time, at 36, 37 until I was almost 38. And it's like, nope, I'm done. Done. Anyway, done with that.
Yeah.
But
when my daughters, when they were younger, they were thinking about going into being a veterinary medicine. And I asked them both, and I said, you really have to think about this. You girls both love animals a lot. Can you handle seeing them at their worst?
That's the thing.
That's going to be 90% of what you're dealing with is animals at their worst.
Yeah, when they come to see you, they're not at their best. You just have to get that in your mind, and have that there. So, yeah, it's that. But Bray Wyatt, that was a big loss. It's a huge loss to his family. Outside of everything else, his family is the one that matters. You got a child who doesn't have a father now because, God knows what happened too.
And you can't speculate really.
No,
at this point, because you just don't know.
He'd
been on TV for quite a while.
Didn't we watch that Mountain Dew Pitch Black match with him? Yeah. Did you watch that with him? There was WrestleMania.
It would have been It would have been April.
Yeah, it was April. That was his last televised match.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus.
Oh, Tulsa asked a good question. What if John Carpenter directed the Thanksgiving?
I would have loved to seen that score when Les Nessman's like, oh, the humanity. They're falling like bags of wet cement.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
when he walks in that door and hits that line. Oh,
Yeah, the turkey would have been the thing.
Either that or their little kitchen knife wielding turkeys falling from the sky. Dun, 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 dun.
And do remember, folks, we are also live on Rumble. So we are doing throw trash around myself here. We are live on Rumble, live here on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And actually, while I got you here, Etep, kind of give us a little bit of background on you, what you do, how you got into horror, other than being a kid and being strange like most of us.
Yeah. Like what as far as like what do I do on YouTube or
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, I do a lot of pop culture stuff, but I love horror. That's my favorite genre. And as you know, we're coming on to fall now, so I'm gonna be proactive this year. I'm gonna record some horror reviews throughout September, release those, and I'm gonna feature the kid in my son in costume like we did last year, doing some trailer reactions. He's wearing his Freddy Krueger costume. But yeah, I was always like obsessed with the macabre as in my youth. Like I said, I'm 43, so I was born in 1980. And that decade was just filled with slashers. And my mother is a huge horror fan. My dad is more like, Marine, non-vet, ex-cop, war movies, Western, stuff like that. He's like, he always said, I horror movies don't scare me because I've pretty much seen the worst of humanity since I was 17 years old and I was in the jungles of Vietnam. So he goes, monsters don't scare me.
Right.
He's like, reality grounded based things are what scares me. He goes, and now at this point, I've been shot, stabbed, run over. So there's not shit that scares me. But so, my mom got me into horror and wrestling and stuff like that. And it's weird, but those two things have always gone hand in hand for me because of just, I guess, the violence aspect of them. And like I said, my earliest horror memories are the Universal monsters, obviously, because that was my mom is, a boomer. So that, the Universal monsters, which were fun. I seen Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy and all that. The original Frankenstein, your Dracula, Christopher Lee. That is
back as far as Boris Karloff.
Oh, I've seen those. I've seen them, and that's my mom and my grandma. Same thing. That was my grandma. She was into this kind of stuff too, which is I think where my mom got it from. So the natural progression from the Universal monsters, which were, I mean, when you're a young kid, they're a little bit scary, but the older you get, the more that wears off, and you're like, okay, what's next? And then it was for me, it was Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, and then Michael Myers, which the first Halloween movie I saw was Halloween 4, right after it came out. And I was just like, wow. And I love Jason. I was like, man, I always thought Michael Myers was like, he's not as cool as Jason. But when I saw the first one, I went back, I'm like, so he's not. And then, you start learning, okay, which franchise came out first, and the chicken or the egg thing. And it's like, man, my mom was like, oh, would you like that? Halloween 4. So she went back and showed me, 1 and 2. And then she's like, well, part 3 doesn't have anything to do with it. And I'm like, what? And I watched part 3. And I never appreciated part 3 when I was younger as much. I was kind of pissed when I first saw it because it didn't have Michael Myers.
Right.
But still had John Carpenter's score. And the older you get, the more you're like, wait a minute, and you start picking up on the little subtleties in the movie. And yeah, after seeing that older, and like I said, Night of the Creeps has been one of my favorite movies since I was a kid. Offbeat horror movies. Tom Atkins is like the common thread in a lot of my horror movies is Tom Atkins showing up. Creep Show, Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3. The mustachioed Mac Daddy, Tom Atkins. And I don't know, he fits in that genre so well, and he's still acting. He's like 80. God, the man's a treasure. God bless him. But yeah,
you do have a second channel as well, as aside from the main channel.
I do. I have Camp Crystal Lake, which CJ did the theme for me, and It's kind of funny because like I'm biding my time now, waiting for the Crystal Lake series to come out, because
Mhm.
once that hits, I'm gonna start doing more content over there. I'm trying to get back into it, as since I got demonetized. Like, I haven't had the fundage to like pay my editor, so I've been doing all my own editing, and I feel back on good stuff's like. But he's so cool about it. He's like, dude, I understand. He's like, I got a full-time gig anyway. He's like, it's just nice, a little extra scratch.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, as soon as we get, the place to be reviews coffers filled back up here, bring him back, because that'll free me up to do stuff. But yeah, I want to do more content over there. And it's because it's more horror. And I did a Crystal Lake video with that intro that you did for me for the channel, on the prequel series, and got like I got like 250 views. I'm like, it's nice to take that intro out for a walk. I was like, man, this is too good not to use, and I'm like, I haven't had any fucking content to put over there in a while. So it's like, I'm going to use this over here every time I do like a Crystal Lake video. I was like, that's going to be the theme I use, and I'll frame it like it's from that channel, but on the main channel.
And of course, my obvious influence on that was Carpenter.
Yeah.
You can't get around it. The horror genre and Carpenter are very intricately linked because of Halloween, and just the sheer effect that had on the genre. I mean, that really was, for me, the first slasher fic that really got mainstream approval, as it were.
Oh, Halloween?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. God, that kicked it all off. It really did. I mean, you had Black Christmas before that. But you really, I mean, Billy was it Billy? I think was the heel's name in that. I don't know. He's slasher, but not in the context of like Myers or Voorhees or anybody like that, But yeah, mainstream, absolutely. It was Halloween, man. That you look back at these movies and the way they were received when they first came out, and like I look at like the way Siskel and Ebert treated horror movies. And it was, it's misogyny and it's this and that, and it's like, now it's like these are lauded, most of these 80s horror movies. Like, look at how nobody ever would have thought that 40 years later they'd still be doing movies for that franchise. Let alone having Carpenter come back to score the fucking thing, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And in my reading up on him, it turns out his dad was a music teacher, which is why he obviously had learned under him, and honestly picked up that from him. And I think you're right on the licensing thing. It was just so much easier for him to do it himself than to pay, a composer to come in and do something or license a bunch of music. And he's just had a lot more control.
Well, that's it too. Like you said, you're working on a budget,
and those movies were not high budget.
No, and that's it. You can't afford licensed music in those. You've got to work with what you got. You got to improv.
And I would love to see more directors kind of do that.
Oh yeah.
Just to use their own, even if they aren't a composer per se. They know who to talk to to kind of keep it under their own umbrella, because a lot of times, especially when it comes to licensed music, other than like James Gunn, it really doesn't fit the movies that often. It just kind of seems like they're tying it in, to what's going on. The only other soundtrack that I really liked when it came to the licensed music was Top Gun, the original Top Gun.
Oh yeah,
because a lot of those tracks were written specifically for the movie.
Yeah,
which is another thing you don't really see often anymore either. Is music written specifically for a movie.
Right, like you look back at like the 80s and 90s, and you would have at least 1 to 2 tracks from an artist, like a mainstream artist, specifically for that movie. And yeah, you don't get that really.
Even Robotech the movie, which was released for a week in Dallas in '86, had a track written for it specifically by Three Dog Night.
Really?
Yeah. It's never, as far as I could tell, it's never been released anywhere else other than on a Robotech compilation I picked up about 20 years ago. It's not a great song. it's
but
definitely
still,
not,
it's Three Dog Night.
it's still not up in the Three Dog Night canon, but yeah, it was written specifically for this movie.
Wait, Three Dog Night, isn't that Burton Cummings?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's I was like, these eyes, yeah, that's Burton Cummings right there, man. That's what Burton Cummings singing a Robotech.
Yep.
And it just seems off.
Yeah. But I mean, even that, even a movie that you bombed harder than anything I've ever seen at a movie theater got a song like that. But you don't really see that anymore. Of course, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that licensing a song from an artist these days would be like a quarter of your budget.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of these movies are so over budget as it is, that it's just easier not to do that,
Because I'm trying to remember, I think it was The Office had to pay, I think it was almost $200,000 for Steve Carell to sing 4 seconds of 2 Tickets to Paradise and change the lyrics. There was no music. It was just him singing it as a joke.
Yeah.
And it cost them $200,000 in licensing fees.
I was thinking about that because I've seen every episode of The Office like 50 times. I'm trying to think. I'm like, what the hell was it? I'm trying, because there was another song that I'm trying to think. I wonder that I didn't know they had to pay that much money for that, though. That's funny because, yeah, he changed the words on there and everything.
Yeah.
They did Supertramp, Goodbye Stranger, except it was Goodbye Toby.
Yeah.
And he had a band playing like the I was like, man, I wonder if they changed it up, if they like Vanilla Iced it just enough. No, theirs was ding 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 diddling ding. Ours was ding 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 diddling ding.
Yeah.
They changed just enough so they could skirt around that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, music licensing is one of the most convoluted things I've ever run across. And it really hurts too when they don't think ahead. Like one of my favorite TV shows in the 90s was The State on MTV. Because it was a sketch comedy show. Most of the cast went on to do Reno 911.
Okay.
So they all tend to work together. So if you see one of them, you'll usually see at least 2 or 3 of the other ones in with them. They're like Broken Lizard.
I was going to say it's like Broken Lizard.
Lizard guys, you'll usually see at least 1 or 2 of them in a project. But there were a lot of episodes that had licensed music in them, and then they had to go back in for the DVD and replace it because they didn't have the license for it for home video, because they never really thought ahead on that. That's a lot of things, especially the 80s TV shows, why so many of them don't come out. Yeah, is because the licensing.
You can get this one on, oh god, I got to order it yet. Shout Factory. Is it something did a release of this with the licensed music, because there's the version that they used to sell didn't have any of the licensed music. It was all just
generic,
generic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like the stuff that WCW would use for a lot of their wrestlers in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anybody. They just said, Warner's got this gigantic catalog of music that's royalty free. We'll just use that.
And then DDP is using Nirvana, and so was
2 chords in the progression.
Yep. And so was Raven. He had Raven use Come As You Are. And then Jericho had Even Flow by Pearl Jam.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They didn't want to play the royalties on that one, even though at the time they had the money for it.
Oh yeah. They're like, oh, look, we got to pay Kenny Chaos $400,000 a year. They're like, who the hell's Kenny Chaos? Nobody knows who that is anymore. I was like, yeah, a little tag team,
Tulsa says, first, I have not seen this movie, but the song Barbie Girl was not in the Barbie movie. Well, that's because Barbie Girl, Aqua made a lot of money off of Mattel trying to sue them for the song. They were trying to claim copyright infringement because you used the word Barbie. It's like, no, it's parody, it's protected speech. You owe us. So they settled out of court for that one. So obviously the movie was not going to use that one because they would have had to pay even more royalties to the band. Gypped them out of money.
Yeah. I remember when that song came out. It was like,
everywhere. Yes.
It was like that song by Eiffel 65. I'm blue, dom dee dom.
Yep.
Oh my God, 19 years old. I'm in the clubs and that's 19, 20 years old. And that's all I was like, oh my God, you know. I'm like, whatever, I'll find some techno chick. Come here.
And then, when we get back to Carpenter, really the only
Yeah.
other person I could think of in the 80s that really hit the synthwave hard was Harold Faltermeyer. Because he really the one soundtrack I know the most from him is Beverly Hills Cop. The Axel F song, that just went everywhere.
Oh God, they still play that on the radio now.
Oh yeah.
I hear that it's great, and having seen all those movies quite a few times and watching with which Trey loves those and he
Mhm.
loves the soundtrack to those. But yeah, the Axel music came on and he was like, "This is from Beverly Hills Cop." I'm like, "Yep." And like I love that my 8-year-old can pick this shit out without reading the radio or what's on. He
Yeah.
just knows some of the songs now. Like I said, he's a man of great culture. We're in the truck and he's like, "All right, can we listen to some, Jim Croce stuff?" I'm like,
Yep.
"Yep."
Well, and Hans Zimmer, said that Carpenter was one of his influences, even though Zimmer was already kind of composing around the same time, but he
I
didn't
was gonna
really get
say,
it big until like the mid '90s to 2000s.
wait,
Jan Hammer, yeah, that would be considered. Well, that also had some guitar in it, so it's not fully what you would consider synthwave. It had a lot of synths in it, but it still had the acoustic percussion and the guitar that was playing along with it. But that's a really good soundtrack too. The Miami Vice soundtrack was always
Yep.
another killer one. Although it had Glenn Fry in it, and I'm kind of hit or miss with Glenn Fry because he's kind of a dick.
And that's the thing. I fucking love Glenn Fry. I do. I didn't know he was a dick, but I love his music. But I mean, it shouldn't surprise me. Like I said,
Like he would be right next to Don Henley, striking channels for using even like a fraction of a second of Eagles music.
yeah, okay. And that's another thing is like I love using like synth and like background and talk bed music and stuff. Having a background in radio like I do, it's like I'm always like thinking about talk bed music. And I've used the WCW Thunder talk bed song for like years now. They started clipping me for the Nitro one. But they never got me for Thunder. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna use this. But yeah, I've used so many like synth, and all my backgrounds I use in the videos are all like synth style, like vaporwave stuff. And yeah, it's always it's just such an influence. And it's something that I always like, I will listen to that. And like I said, I got the kid listening to synthwave now with me. It's like there's a few channels on YouTube that they'll do like the guy, what is it, White Bat Studios. He puts
like
out
24-hour streams that it's just just live at all times.
Yes.
Dropping in and out of.
Yep. And he throws all the stuff out there and he's like, "Hey, you can use anything you want, just credit me for it." And there's like 4 or 5 songs of his that I have stored that are just like we use them on the streams and stuff like that. There's the synthwave is, man, it's nice to see it come back.
Yeah. I'm
that resurgence.
And for me, the whole reason I even got back into it, or really got into it in 2020, was COVID. Everything was shut down. I mean, I wasn't really able to record anything, but I've got a little 49 key MIDI controller, and I can just load up a bunch of VSTs and make music that way. Just produce it all on my own. So I was able to get my music juices flowing.
Yep.
While still having to deal with everything being shut down.
Yeah. And it's composing music to me it's always been fascinating. It's somebody who has like no musical ability whatsoever. It has always been fascinating to me. That's what I'm trying to get the kid in, because I got a piano. So I'm trying to get him into playing the piano, get him signed up for lessons, because I have a great music teacher. She was a substitute teacher when I was in like middle school. and she's still teaching piano at Trey's school. So I'm like, I'd like to get him into that because he likes singing. He's got a decent little voice on him already too, which is like, because both of my sisters are musicians, or were. Both could could sing and play like 3-4 different instruments. Then there's me. It's like I make stupid jokes. That's me, you know.
Yep.
But
well,
yeah,
like, people ask me why I don't dance. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a percussionist. So God gave me the gift of rhythm in my hands and my feet. But to do that, he squeezed my middle like a toothpaste tube, so there's no rhythm there. So there's no rhythm in these here hips. That's how I look at it. I'm like, I've got rhythm where it matters for music. I don't have it for dancing. I make Elaine look like Baryshnikov.
I would trade what small dancing ability I do have, but it's funny though, because like at my wedding, we were joking around and me and one of my groomsmen went out and learned the kid and play like kick step dance. You know, they put their feet together. We learned that whole thing in like 5 minutes and came in and like executed it perfectly in the middle of the dance floor. But I you know, it's like if I study something like that, I can usually get it down pretty fairly quick. Some of the more complicated shit though, I'm just going to trip myself and fall. You know, let's be honest. You know, Michael Jackson, I'm not. I would trade, like I said, I would trade what little dancing ability I do have for the ability to actually like play any kind of instrument. You know, I tried like guitar as a kid. I never had the patience for it. And but my sisters, both of them, took to it like that, you know. I wish. Yeah, I wasn't wired that way, but like I can write a story or, you know, something like that. That's my thing, you know. But I can't, you know, music is not. I have a good ear for it, but I don't. No, I can sing a little bit. Like I said, there's a few songs that I've been able to pull off over the years, but yeah, I've never been able to compose or play an instrument or anything like that because let's face it, it sounds like a dying goose. Anything I do, it's just not. That's not.
I couldn't avoid it with my family because, you know, my dad played guitar, my mom was a vocalist.
Yeah,
I did both guitar and drums and a little bit of bass. You know, I've had a couple of saxophonists, a tuba player. You know, I can't really avoid it.
No. That you were set up for a musical, you know, to have a musical career background. So yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, when I was, you know, younger, it was really funny because my mom and I would usually go places together. So it was a lot of times, you know, she used to be taking me from school and stuff like that. And, you know, we would sing together in the car, you know, a lot of the you know, 50s, early 60s music that had a lot of harmonies. And of course, when I was little, I would always take the high part and she would take the lower part because she was an alto. Of course, once, you know, puberty hit, we had to flip because I couldn't hit those high parts to save my soul.
Once the testicles descend, most guys they don't have that upper, they can't hit those upper notes anymore. No. That goes away.
No,
that falsetto goes.
I went
down to a rich baritone.
High tenor to a baritone.
Yeah,
but well, we are getting closer to the end here. Got about 10 minutes left. What do you have coming up on your channel?
Okay, so we have probably a video or two being released tomorrow. Another one on the Marvels, and not that I'm going to watch the movie because why would I do that? But look, I have a YouTube channel. I need views, and the last video I did on the Marvels went over 200. So it's like it's 22 minutes. It's not edited. That's raw footage. So I'm going to cut that down. Obviously, released an Alec Baldwin video today. Realizing that was the 7th Alec Baldwin video I've done. So that is all. That's if you go check the video and the beginning of it, like I said, this is usually the way my videos go. Just watch the first minute and 40 seconds. You don't have to watch the other 10 minutes if you don't want to, because it's the funniest part of the video. But like I said, I sneak some little nuggets of fun throughout the videos when I do them, because some of the times, you know,
too early on that.
It was look, I had it was an itchy trigger finger during that video, definitely. But I've got a couple. I got 2 or 3 videos recorded right now. I've got a couple more I've got to shoot still. Release over the weekend. We got Saturday night's main event coming up. We'll be playing Mario Kart after that. Yeah, we're watching AEW All In on Sunday from Wembley Stadium on Draven's channel. And yeah, just did a member stream today too. So if you're a channel member, I know Jason Holt's one of my channel members. He was there. He was working and lurking today, listening. So yeah, I plan on doing those every Thursday when I'm available. And if not, they'll get one, throughout the course of the week. I'll make sure I do a member stream. I was doing them every Monday and Wednesday night, but with switching to Rumble now and me going, being more involved with school this year, it's tough to do some of those later streams like that. But no, come on over, subscribe. CJ's there 3 nights a week with us, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday on, Going in Raw, Holy Shit News, and then Saturday night's main event. And thank you for that, man. He signed on originally for Monday or for just Wednesday nights. Then he ended up coming on Mondays. And then it was like, oh, what the hell? Come on Saturdays. And he's on every stream with me now. So,
well, it's always been a lot of fun. And you really were the first one to get me on YouTube as a streamer. So I'm always going to be internally in your debt and may curse you at some point down the road for that.
Couple of years in, you're going to be like, I hate this prick. No more. I can't do it.
And then, of course, you can also see his links there on the banner there. Obviously follow him on Twitter, follow him on YouTube, follow him on Rumble. And I'm thinking about doing some streams on Rumble exclusively where I can actually play music and listen to music.
Yes. We did the Rumble stream last night. We're going into it. It's like, okay, hang on. Time to cue up the Tears for Fears, my Dennis Miller inspired intro from his, HBO show in the 90s, because one of my favorite comedians, Dennis Miller, Tears for Fears, absolutely love them. Always have. And I'm like, I want to come into Everybody Rules the World and not have to worry about copyright. It's like, I can do that on Rumble.
Yep.
So,
well, yeah. And the weirdest thing, when I did all the movie themes for the Bond movies, I don't know what is up with their system, but only about half of them actually got claimed. They're all, covers of songs, but only like half of them actually got claimed. It was really weird. YouTube's a weird thing.
Their guidelines are gerrymandered. To be kind, they're gerrymandered.
Oh yeah, that they are. Well, as a programming note for us here on the Forgotten OneCast, next week we're going to try take 2 with Flawedzilla, Flawed TV, since the stream we tried to do didn't work out at all. And so we're going to be talking sampling with him. And then I'm working on getting that 70s rock fan on to talk prog rock with him, because that was really my jam. Especially back at college, I had a mentor and advisor that really introduced me to a lot of stuff I hadn't heard before, even though I listened to Yes and Rush, Rush and, groups like that from my dad. So we're going to try to get him on, and, working on some other guests. And, obviously if you guys have some topics you guys want to talk about, shoot me on Twitter or comment below. After the video runs, always looking for, people to talk to and topics to bring up. I'd love to bring on, some independent artists, and help get them promoted. Cause obviously, the algorithm can only do so much, hopefully,
right.
Getting their name out in other places would help out. Cause, obviously I'm an independent musician, so I want to get my stuff out and I want to help other people do that too. That's kind of my ultimate goal with this channel, is to just, help other people grow while I grow at the same time. Because that's just that's how you have to do it. You have to help out each other, help out your fellow humans.
Right. And that's the problem we see a lot on YouTube is, people will get growth and then they just kind of leave everybody else behind. That, I said, no matter how big my channel gets, which it's not. I've been doing this 4.5 years. I got 1,542 subscribers, and I ain't mad about it. I ain't mad at it. There was a point in time in my YouTube journey where I would have been like beating my head against the wall, but you know what? It's fine. I enjoy it. I have a dedicated dedicated, ardent fucking following that is there all the time for us. And it's as long as I'm entertaining people and I've got a wonderful group of friends with me to do it. And that's why I always say it ain't me, it's we. Because if it was just me, nobody would fucking watch. No, nobody would watch.
Oh yeah.
I'd have like 2 or 3 people watching me. You know, I got a group around me that's wonderful. So we've weeded out people along the way that, you know, just didn't fit in for one reason or another. And a lot of times it's nothing personal. It wasn't. It's just, hey, this ain't a good fit, you know. And nothing but love. I hope everybody, you know, does well. That's the thing. And I love seeing like how Adam just skyrocketed. He's at 10K. That's amazing. It is. And it's like, man, you know, it's like the guys come in, well, what should I do here? What should I do? And then boom, it's like, there's nothing more rewarding when you help someone to see them succeed. It's like, and like you always hear stories of people like that. It's like, it would be bitter because the person they're mentoring like surpass them. It's like, well, that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's what you want. You're mentoring someone. The goal is it's like raising like me as a parent. It's like, I want my son to be a better man than me. I'm not going to be mad if he's more successful than me. I'm going to be like, damn, I imparted some wisdom on him. And then the rest is him. That's what you want. So yeah, man, it's great to see people succeed. And this guy here, you got to make sure you're subscribed to him and follow. He's funny, talented, and just a wonderful all around guy. So thank you for being part of it, man.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being on. And we'll have to do it again sometime. And of course, you know, obviously we'll be together on Saturday, hanging out, Saturday night's main event. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but it's always a fun time.
You know. We'll figure it out as we go.
You should almost rename it the Fly by the Seat of Your Pants Orchestra.
It's pretty much it. Much it.
Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you in the chat. Let me make sure everyone, Jason Holt for joining in, Tulsa, Scrambles the Death Dealer, Keely Chow, Dermy popping in for a little bit. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week with Flawed TV, Mr. Flawdzilla, the king of the glizzies himself. Everyone, just make music. Just make it. Even if it sounds weird, just make it, because it comes from the great place. It comes from the heart. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.